The comprehension test is question 1 of paper 1, and probably the first question you're going to answer after having received your question paper. Now, what to do? The first thing to remember is to remain calm and to make the best use of the 2 hours that you have to do the entire paper, which have 5 questions. The comprehension test being 30 out of the 70 marks of this paper. So the first thing that's going to happen after you've received your paper is that you will have a 10-minute reading time. During that time, you will not be allowed to have a pen in your hand. So unfortunately, no underlining or highlighting can take place during those 10 minutes. However, if you stop to think about it, those 10 minutes are very, very valuable and you must make the best use of it. Now, how to do that, and this is only my suggestion, but this is what I would recommend. I would say you use this time to skim the texts of the comprehension test. There will usually be 2 texts. So you're going to just have a quick look at what it comprises. Fine, you're going to see that there's a written text, and it's mainly informative. You're just going to have a quick skim, and you're going to see that there's a visual text, a second text, also perhaps with written aspects to it. So just have a quick look at what you're in for. Also try to assess very quickly, more or less, what this is all about. Now, once you've done that, you've had a quick look at the paper, at question 1 and the texts. You look at the title of text A. Text A is your longest text, and it's usually informative in nature. So look at the title. The title is going to give you some information about what's to follow. So just take note of that. If there is a pun in the title, think of it. Think about it, what it might mean, etc. If there's a subtitle, think about that. If there's a rider, which is something that's longer than a subtitle, that wishes to sort of take you step by step through the text, also have a look at that. So get a good idea of what is to follow. So you're going to just skim text A then. Look at the text, perhaps look at the first and the last sentences, and get a general idea of where this argument is going or what it's actually about. Then you look at the visual text. The next thing to look at is the visual text, and you can do all of that very quickly during those 10 minutes. Look at the visual text, try to make sense of it, try to see a connection between text B and text A, just get that sort of straight in your head where that's going, the visual text. Right, and if you still have time, then you can skim the questions. Just go through the questions very quickly. Remember, no underlining at this stage. Just skim through the questions. So now they tell you that it's time for you to start. You can start your 2-hour exam. So when the exam starts, what do? You must have at the back of your mind the idea that you have 45 to 50 minutes for the comprehension. That is how long you have. So hopefully you've done some papers at home and you've done some exercises and you know more or less that you can do it and how you should time yourself. But the point is not to forget that you have maximum 50 minutes for your comprehension test. Preferably keep a watch next to you, some kind of time device. It won't be your cell phone because that's not allowed. So remembering that, you now start becoming serious about your comprehension test. Now you don't start reading text A. You don't start with that. You start with the questions. You go straight to the questions, and now you look at the questions in detail. In other parts of the series of lessons on the comprehension test, there are many things that I'm going to tell you, or that I have told you, to keep an eye out for. But for now, what you do is you read the questions very carefully, look at your instruction words, highlight them in a certain color or underline or encircle, but make sure that you know what the instruction word in every question is. Also, some key aspects that you have to look out for, keywords of what to keep in mind when you do what the instruction word tells you to do. So just highlight that and take note of what the questions are asking. Now, once you've gone through the questions thoroughly, but you still have a time limit, so go through it fairly quickly, but with full focus, and go through it, underline, highlight what is important. Also, make sure that you understand that there is a a mark allocation as well, which is important. And especially where you get a 3-mark or a 4-mark allocation, take special note that those are going to require longer answers, right? So you've read the questions very well. You've highlighted the key aspects. Then, of course, after having done that, remember, you now have certain questions sort of somewhere in your mind. You've read the questions. Now you start reading the passage with great care, while keeping the questions in mind. And you'll see that ever so often something will jump out at you. In other words, you will remember, oh, there was a question about that. So just make a little note, highlight, or just lift that out so that when you start answering, you know where to go and find the answer. So you go through the passage very carefully, and you just highlight a few things that jump out at you. You have seen this aspect, this in a question or something. Just take note of it. It sounds like a long process, but remember, this happens very quickly as you are doing this in the examination room. But you must do it with full focus, please. The moment you find out that you read a paragraph and you don't really know what you've read, you're in a danger zone. So read it properly and with focus, fine? So highlight them. Then, after that only, you go back to question 1, and you focus on question 1, and then you answer question 1 fully but concisely. The first questions will be shorter ones, so your answers won't be more than about 2 to 3 or 4 lines, at the most 4 lines, but it will be direct questions, and we'll talk about some other time. So you're going to read each question calmly and thoroughly before you attempt it, and you focus on the instruction word, which you have encircled or underlined, and you focus on the keyword, and you focus on the mark allocation, making sure that you answer that question as best you can. So that's in a nutshell your approach. Right, then another thing that you should remember is that you should not repeat the question. Please don't repeat the question. How did the author do blah, 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 blah? Don't say he did blah, 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 because what you're writing there is just you rewriting the question. And you cannot get any marks for that, so don't do it. Get straight to the answer, and rather answer beautifully and carefully and fully than repeating the question. Please don't repeat the question. You have to use full sentences. You can't be cryptic here, and you can't just give a telegram style because it's out. You have to have full sentences. It's not as though you're going to be penalized too much for that, but keep in mind, full sentences is what is required of you in your instructions. Unless, of course, you're otherwise required, if you're just told to quote a word, it's unlikely that you'll be asked that in a home language paper, but keep it in mind. unless they ask you just to quote a single word, then you quote the word. Don't use abbreviations or slang, because this is a formal exercise. You have to be formal about it. The fully but concisely, those two words are key. You have to answer the question, all the aspects of the question in terms of the key words, etc. But remain concise. Don't give us paragraphs, please. A two-mark question, max four lines, max, depending on your handwriting. But don't go overboard, please. Answer to the point. You discuss or you answer only what the question asks, nothing more than that. Because if you do more than that, you are playing a little game. So in case that's what they wanted, don't leave it up to the marker, because actually it's going to annoy the marker. Answer to the point, right? Then, as I said, your mark allocation is very important. That should guide the length of your answer, and it will also determine the extent of your answer. Make sense? As far as quotes are concerned, we've already said, unless you are asked to quote. Now, sometimes we are going to quote during the course of an answer. You are not to quote, right, in answering a question. In other words, you are not to lift. A lift just means that you're stealing from the passage. You're actually quoting, but you're not even using quotation marks. So that's not legit at all. So you don't lift from the passage. You use your own words. And also you don't quote. I just quote this whole line, and the answer is there, so I'm just quoting the line. That's also cheating in a way. You have to answer in your own words without quoting. Fine? And you use your own words as far as you can. And listen, guys, simple, clear language is good enough. Don't be too fancy about it. Answer the question, answer it properly, and answer it concisely. But if you have to quote, sometimes during the course of an answer, there will be a quote word, for instance. Sometimes they ask you to refer to diction in a certain paragraph, and there's a certain word within that paragraph that you need to quote as an example. Then, of course, you use your quotation marks. For instance, here is an example. In paragraph 3, line 9, the author uses the slang word biscuit, right? This is just an example of how you should quote it, fine? Now, then again, you do not quote a sentence. Do not quote a sentence. Let us say you want to refer to also a certain aspect of diction, and there's a phrase that illustrates your point. Don't go and quote the whole sentence. Quote that specific phrase, and no more than that, or the word, because it won't be clear to whoever is marking your answer as to which word or phrase, which diction you're actually not talking about. It's just too vague to give a whole sentence instead of a phrase or a word when you have to refer to language, aspects of language or diction. When you do appreciation questions, where you need to evaluate the effectiveness of diction, for instance, how effective is the diction used in paragraph 9, for instance. You must remember not to do what we did in the previous example, just to stop after the word biscuit, right? Because that will never be the full extent of the answer. There will be something else. So you must not stop after having quoted a certain word. In paragraph 9, he uses a slang word, biscuit. There should be more to the answer, right? So don't stop after quoting the word. Now let us, depending on the question and the instructions, this is an example. The use of the word biscuit is effective. Remember, these are evaluation and appreciation questions. Do you think his use of diction is effective? Okay, it is effective. So you say the use of the word biscuit is effective. Now you have quoted the word, and that's enough for the first aspect to be given a mark for. Because the writer speaks about street and motorcycle gangs, right? Second mark there. And you can see that is still not enough, especially thinking that it's a 3-mark question. So you have given the word used, you have given the fact that it's the gangs, right? Used by the gangs, and that's what he's talking about, and what they typically refer to a gun as a biscuit. You see? So you've got, can you see how you've got the 3 marks just flowing into the other? You identify, and then you elaborate and give more so that you can clearly feel the 1, 2, 3 marks coming out there. It's as easy as that. Then we said on comparative questions. Okay, comparative questions are the ones that you'll most likely get towards the end of your paper, where you will have questions on both texts A and B, and they will normally be comparative in nature. Now, the important thing to remember is that you will be told specifically that you must refer to, say, paragraphs 9 and 10, or paragraph 9 or 10 or 11, whatever it is, and how the information in that part of text A compares to text B. What similarities are there? Be very, very careful, because I don't want you to look at the whole of text A, only a certain part, and that must be compared to text B. Is the information consistent with what you see in text B, the visual text? Or is it contrasting, or is it similar? You have to decide, depending on the question. Now, it says the questions require a comparison between text A and text B. Note that it will be specific, right? And a specific, please guys, it's very important. I've seen too many people overlooking that aspect and then getting the answer wrong of text A. And how the points made there are either supported or contradicted in text B. You're going to have to look at the words of the question. So what you will then say is, it is said, for instance, in the relevant section of text A, say paragraph 9, and you say also what is expressed in text B, and now you compare the two, or you explain how the first extract and the next text, or whatever, the two things support one another or contradict one another. So that is what you need to have a good look out for. So when you're asked to also give your view on something, supply a good reason based on the text. If it says, do you think the solution is logical, morally acceptable, sustainable? That is an evaluation question. And then you'll answer, I do not think the author's solution is sustainable because it explains, this part of it explains that, and so you're going to refer to the text. If you are asked to critically assess or say in your own opinion what you think of it, this is an appreciation question. So let us just look at a sample answer. The solution is not sustainable. They ask, do you think it is a sustainable solution? Critically discuss. Right. It's not sustainable. First say what you're saying. It's not sustainable. You're not going to get a mark for that specifically. You're going to be assessed mainly on your motivation, on the rest of your answer. Why? You're going to look at the text itself, and because it says critically, you're going to have to go beyond the text and also give your own assessment. The author, why do I say it's not? It's the author actually contradicts himself. He says, and then he doesn't say. There's a contradiction, which you're going to lift out. He himself says that it's short term, right? And also your own observation is that this method has been tested all over the world and it's not sustainable. So it's never been proved successful anywhere in the world. So remember then, these last questions are the ones that count the most. And if you're asked to refer to two texts, remember you will not get your full mark unless you specifically refer to both texts. Keep these things in mind.